Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to be talking about special cases. In other words, the vertical and horizontal lines. In class, I mentioned that it's easy to get these confused, so I have two acronyms that help keeping them straight. Okay, so the first thing I want you to do is just go ahead and draw, just get your next page in your comp book, and across the top, just draw 3 boxes that are 3 lines deep. And then down here, it doesn't matter, just down the page, just go ahead and start 3 boxes going down the page this way, okay? So the top 3, I want you to spell out H-O-Y. Okay. Well, the H stands for horizontal. The O is actually not a O, it's actually a 0, which means a horizontal line has a 0 slope. Remember when we talked about with horizontal lines, if we had 0 rise over infinite run, so it goes up and down 0, but left and right as many as possible, then that is the horizontal line. That's why the slope is equal to 0, okay? The Y means that if we were to write this as y equals mx plus b, we'd have 0x plus b. Well, 0 times anything is just going to be 0. So the equation is just going to be y equals the y-intercept. In other words, you could also think of it as it's just going to be y equals some number. Okay? Maybe I'll put some number. Well, or put a number, which is the y-intercept. Okay? So my point is, there's only y in the equation because the 0x basically adds out to 0. That's why you only have y equals b. So again, the whole point of this is there's only y in the equation. So if I draw myself a little graph, just sketch an x and y axes and draw yourself a horizontal line, and I'm going to make it go through -3. So if this horizontal line has a y-intercept of -3, then guess what? The equation is just going to be y equals -3. That's the whole equation. Because every single point on that horizontal line, the y-coordinate is 3. X can be anything. Because that's what we talked about, infinite run, 0 rise. So because it's 0 rise, the y cannot change at all. The y stays the same. But the x's with the infinite run can be anything, okay? So hoy, anytime you see there's a horizontal line, write hoy, and that'll help remind you that, okay, for horizontal lines, they have 0 slope, and the equation just has a y equals the y-intercept, okay? Now, for these 3 boxes, I'm sure you're thinking ahead that it's going to be vertical. Well, the acronym is VUX, V-U-X. Well, what that stands for, we know the V stands for vertical lines. The U stands for undefined slope. Now, we talked in class that no slope means that you have infinite rise over 0 run. But any fraction that has 0 in the denominator is undefined. Okay, that's why we call it undefined slope. So we don't even say m equals anything. We just say it's an undefined slope. So that's what the U stands for. Okay. So again, remember, vertical lines have infinite rise, which is the up and the or the vertical change up and down, but it has 0 run, 0 left and right. Okay. But any fraction with 0 in the denominator is no solution or undefined, okay? Now the x basically just means it's going to be x equals the x-intercept, which we really haven't talked about. And in fact, there's no y in the equation, and there's no y-intercept, okay? And let me show you what that looks like. So for example, if I draw my x and y axis, which I probably up here should label it my x and y axis, I need to slow down. And let's say I go to positive 4. Okay, and let's say the x-intercept is 4 for this vertical line. Not y-intercept, but x-intercept, so it's on the x-axis, and we have a vertical line. Okay, so again, we have, just like the slope says, we have infinite rise, which means infinite vertical change up and down, but it does not go left or right at all, 0 run, okay? And every single point on this line, the x coordinate is going to stay 4, but the y can be anything. That's why you have that's why you have infinite rise, but 0 run, because it doesn't go left and right. The y, or the x coordinate, doesn't change. That's why this is so important. So in the VUX, when you see x, the equation is only going to have x equals the x-intercept, which is positive 4 in this case. That's the whole equation, because y can be anything. So now let's go to again, for vertical lines, I want you to write the VUX, and we always write it vertically. And for horizontal lines, I want you to write HOI, because that's a very powerful acronym. So if I count over here, the x-intercept is positive 3. Remember how we said that, okay, it's always going to be x equals the x-intercept for the equation, which is positive 3. So the equation is x equals 3. Boom, we're done, because it's a vertical line. Now, for HOI, we know that there's only going to be a y equals the y-intercept, which is -1. So the equation is just y equals -1. That's it. Because for every single point on that line, y is -1. X can be anything. Okay? So for every problem, when you see a vertical line, just write VUX, and then answer the question. But my point is, as soon as I see a horizontal line, write HOI, because then I can use the acronym to identify what part I'm going to be answering. See where it says write the equation of each line? Well, the equation is the last letter and what the intercept is. So like on number 1, the x-intercept is -2. So guess what? The equation is x equals -2, and the acronym reminds me that I use x and not y. Like on number 2, I know that the y-intercept is 3, and the acronym reminds me I use y, not x, so y equals 3. That's the whole equation. So like number 3, I know it's a HOI, so I'm going to write y equals, well, the y-intercept is -5, so it's -5. Boom, we're done. Because the equation is always the third letter of the acronym. So number 4, I know it's a VUX, so I know it's going to be x equals some number, so I need to figure out what the x-intercept, which is +4, so the answer is x equals +4. So go ahead and do 5. Let me do 5. See, okay, these bolder arrows are the line that they want you to focus on. The x and y axis have these teeny tiny little lines. Well, notice the y-axis happens to have a bold line, so in fact, this is the line that they're talking about, and since I know it's a vertical line, I'm going to write VUX, so I know I only have x for the equation, so I just write, okay, well, what's the x-intercept? Well, the x-intercept is 0 because it crosses the origin, so I just write x equals 0. Boom. Let's just do this one real quick. We know this is a HOI, so I know I write y only, so the y equals the y-intercept, which is +2, so y equals 2. Boom, I'm done. So yes, this is simple, but remember the acronyms help keep this straight. Anything that's really easy is also really easy to confuse. So go ahead. Okay, so let's go through number 7. This time we're actually going to graph it. Well, the way I use the acronym this time is if it's a y, I write HOY, and I know I'm going to have a horizontal line, so I just go to the y-intercept, which is -5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I just draw in my horizontal line. It can't get any easier than this, but again, without the acronym, I could easily draw it the wrong way. Okay, but because of the y, I know it's a HOY. And because of the x, for number 8, I know it's a VUX. So I go to -1 for the x-intercept, and I draw in a vertical line. Number 9, because it's an x, I know it's a VUX. And I go to the x-intercept on the x-axis, +3, and I draw my vertical line for the V. And then since 10 has a y, I know it's a HOY. So then I go to +8, and I draw my horizontal line. Now, if you have both x and y in the equation, you have to use y equals mx plus b, and it's not one of these special cases. It's not the special case for horizontal or vertical. So again, if there's two variables in the equation, both x and y, you have to use y equals mx plus b. So now notice this, where they're 11, 12, and 13, they're asking about slope. Well, remember the middle letter in the HOY and the VUX talked about slope? So as soon as I see the y, I know that it's going to be a HOY, and that middle letter, if you remember, represented a 0. So the slope is going to be 0. Now, I don't care if you write out the number or say m equals 0, either way. Well, for number 12, I know it's going to be a VUX because it's an x only in the equation. And remember, the middle letter tells you about slope. Well, the middle letter is U, so that means the slope is undefined. I just put undefined. And guess what? It's going to be the same case for number 13. I'm not even going to write it again. I already have it here. For the line x equals 0, I know the slope that they're asking for is going to be undefined. So again, remember, the middle letter is what you use in the acronym when they ask about slope. That's a shorthand. Okay, now what's the difference between y equals 3 and y equals 3x? I'm going to leave this to you guys, and I want to talk about this at the beginning of next class. I want to see if you can figure out the difference. And then I want you to graph each. So this one I want you to graph y equals 3, and this one I want you to graph y equals 3x. Okay, so let's talk about that.